Are you thinking about buying real estate in Toronto, but you keep hearing about these crazy bidding wars? Well, in this video, I'm going to talk to you about some tips and tricks on how to win that bidding war. And stay tuned till the end because I'm going to give you two examples from the last couple of weeks where I've won and lost the bidding war. And I'm going to tell you what I learned from them. So let's get to it. Hi everybody, my name is Connie Sarvananthan and I'm a real estate agent and investor here in Toronto. If this is your first time to the channel, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. And don't forget to hit the little bell button so that you know every single time we have a new video. We help clients from around the world and we absolutely love it. Our goal with our channel is to really help educate you about the process of buying and selling in Toronto so that when you're ready, you feel confident about the process. So if you have any questions about buying real estate in Toronto or selling real estate in Toronto or anything about living in Toronto, please call, text, email, or WhatsApp and we'll be sure to help you out. The Toronto housing market continues to be very active and there's definitely still bidding wars. Obviously there's a slowdown of some houses, but if the house is really popular and highly desirable, or if it's listed under market value, which is a strategy a lot of real estate agents use, then there's definitely going to be a bidding war. So this video is really about giving you some tips and tricks to try and navigate that. So the first thing that you need to do is really understand your budget. So what do I mean about budget? Well, first of all, I want to say that I did a full video on how to buy a house in Toronto, which goes into a lot more detail, and I give resources in that video, so check that out if you want more detail. But overall, you really need to understand what you can afford, and then your next step is to think about what you want to actually spend, because those two don't necessarily match up depending on what your goals are and what you want to do with the rest of your life as well. So when I say what you can afford, you really need to understand what your down payment is, what if you're getting a mortgage, what you qualify for from a mortgage standpoint, and you really need to know from a mortgage standpoint, you know, that you have a firm commitment of that mortgage and not just like a quick online approval. You need a firm commitment of that mortgage. You also need to understand where you're going to get the additional funds. So for your deposit, for example, it should be liquid and ready to go. So that usually comes out of your down payment. And then there's going to be other additional fees like land transfer tax, lawyer's fees, and then there could be other fees depending on the type of property that you're buying. So when you add that all up, you need to really understand, okay, this is what I can afford. And then from a mental standpoint, you really need to understand, okay, this is how much I actually want to spend. And this is my max budget because when I spend more than this, I'll feel uncomfortable for whatever reason. Or if I spend more than this, I can't actually afford it because I don't have the money to do it. So setting the budget and sticking to your budget will be very helpful because when you go into these bidding wars, you'll know what your max is and you'll know when you're going to walk away. So first things first, set your budget. Then next thing is understand the market value of the property you're interested in. So understanding the market value is critical for two reasons. First of all, it helps you establish what you want to pay for a property. And then second of all, it's important to understand for the appraisal. So understanding what you want to pay for the property is important. So let's say you are interested in a one-bedroom condo in a building, and when you go and see that condo, you love it, and then you start to look at the market value of it. If you're working with an agent, this is the agent's job to tell you what the market value is. But you want to understand what other units in that building sold for that are the same price and have the same extras like parking, locker, etc. So if all of those other units sold for $500,000, let's say, so everybody that's sold so far has sold for $500,000, then you kind of know where you're going to be as far as paying for this property. Now, let's say on offer day, there is 15 offers and you know it's going to go above $500,000. Well, what you need to understand is, okay, how much more would I pay than that $500,000? And if I'm going to go over market value, then the risk I take is that my appraisal won't come in at the right amount. So let's say that $500,000 property you pay $550,000 for. Well, what happens is the bank is going to send an appraiser to the property to appraise its value. And if the bank appraises the value at $500,000, because that's what the similar unit sold for, then there's a $50,000 shortfall. And so you're going to either have to make up that $50,000 out of pocket, or you're going to have to find another lender who's going to give you the full $550,000 value for its appraisal. So that's why understanding the market value is important. It's important because sometimes people just pay way over market value and you don't know what their motivation is. Maybe it's a unit that's beside my sister, so I'm going to pay extra for it and I don't care. You don't know. But understanding market value is critical, because, especially if you're getting a mortgage, because the appraisers are going to look at the other units in that building and make sure and do comps, and they're going to base their appraisal on those comps. So understanding market value is critical. Okay, so the next thing is making quick decisions. So in a multiple offer situation, it's fluid and things can change. So even if there's an offer date, it could get moved up. If there's a bully offer and they accept bully offers, then you may have to make a decision quickly. So it's really important that you get your head around that and understand that, you may have to make a very quick decision. You could see a property in the afternoon and have to make an offer in 2 hours. Who knows? It depends on the situation, but you have to be comfortable with that. So hopefully what's happening is you understand the process, you understand the market value, you understand what you would want to pay for it, and so you can make that decision comfortably and compete in a multiple offer. And listen, if that really isn't your cup of tea, you don't have to make an offer on a multiple offer. You can wait for a property that doesn't have that, or look for a property that has been on the market longer, that you can have a little bit more negotiation room or time to think. It's not all properties have multiple offers. There's certain ones, and they're definitely the most popular ones. But making a quick decision is important. I'll give you an example. So a couple of weeks ago, my clients wanted to see an out-of-town property. And so we had scheduled an appointment for the Sunday, and it was Thursday, and they got a bully offer. And so they were reviewing that bully offer on Friday night. So we had to switch all our plans around, go and see it the Friday morning, and be ready to make an offer by Friday afternoon, right after we saw it, which is what they ended up doing. Now, my clients were in a position to do that because they had seen enough homes that they knew absolutely that they wanted this one, so they were ready to make that decision quickly. I'm not sure if this was the very first house they saw that they would do it, but sometimes that happens too. They see one house, they love it, and they're ready to go. But either which way, you need to be mentally prepared that for the really popular properties, you may have to make a decision very quickly. Okay, so the next thing is understanding the seller's wants and needs. So for example, if the seller wants a quick closing, can you accommodate that? Then you try and do that. If the seller wants to take the dog house that's attached to the house, but they say that they're gonna fix the wall and you're okay with that, then give them that. Things that are easy for you to give a seller in a multiple offer situation, you should try and give the seller that, because in a multiple offer situation, you're trying to make this as easy as possible for the seller to accept your offer. So that's why things that the seller wants are important. Okay, next up is your highest and best. So a lot of times in multiple offer situations, they will say, bring your highest and best. So what does highest and best mean? It means that bring your highest and best offer on the first round, meaning that when it's offer time, so let's say it's Saturday at 4 o'clock, bring your highest and best offer. There are situations where the seller may go, okay, well, we want to see, we're going to give everybody the chance to redo their offers. But what I'm noticing is more and more that isn't the case. if you have a strong offer, they're going to accept it and they just want to be done with it. So highest and best is always the best bet. And what I always tell my clients, because I'm always asked, okay, what should we offer? The offer amount is really up to you based on all of the information I've given you about the comps, about everything else. You need to understand it from your financial position, and you also need to understand it from, what is it that I'm going to do with this property? Am I going to stay in it forever? Well, then that would make my pricing different than if I want to flip it in a year, because there are costs to buying and selling property. So if you overpay for something and then you're trying to flip it, that can be a dangerous process. However, if you're planning to stay in it for a long time, then the history of Toronto real estate has proven to grow. So even if we do hit a period where we don't grow, if you're in it for the long run, you should be okay. So that's why highest and best is really about thinking about what your best is. And then that way, when, if you don't get it, you know that you put your best foot forward. So that's what highest and best is. Okay, so the next one we're going to talk about is the preemptive offer. Now, preemptive offer or a bully offer is something that some people use to try and get a property quickly. And they try and do it quickly because they don't want more people to see it to bring in the competition. So for example, let's say a property comes out on Thursday and they have an offer date on Monday. And the seller decides that even though there's an offer date on Monday, they will consider preemptive offers. Well, a seller is only going to consider a preemptive offer if it's spectacular, and they don't believe that it's worth waiting till Monday to see all the other offers. So I always say, if you're going to go in high and you're going to go in like with a spectacular offer, then do it early so that you can try and be the first one in. And the thing is, what will happen is if there was an offer date and there are other people, then the agent will tell everybody, we got a preemptive offer and we're changing our offer date. And let's say I submitted the offer on Friday. They say, okay, well now, you have until Friday night at 8 o'clock to submit the offers. And so they just change everything around because a preemptive offer is so spectacular that they want to move up the date. Now, some listings will say no preemptive offers, but if it doesn't, and you know that it's going to be a spectacular offer, then it is something you want to consider. That said, if I have a listing and I get a preemptive offer, I'm only going to consider a preemptive offer if I think that, I won't get better offers on the Monday. And so there's a bit of a cat and mouse game that's going on, but it is definitely a strategy to try and use because some sellers just want to get it done and over with. And if you give a good enough offer, they may just say, okay, this is good. Let's move up the offer date and see if we can just get this done quicker. So the next thing is conditions. Waiving conditions can make an offer much stronger, but it's one that I caution. And if you can avoid it, I would. But the reality is, if you're bidding on a really hot property and there's multiple offers, the seller is going to want usually the offer that has the least amount of conditions. So what is a condition? A condition could be a condition on financing to make sure that, your lender is going to approve this property. It could be a condition on the property. So a property inspection. So, you want to make it conditional on somebody inspecting the property and telling you what's good and bad about it. It could be a condition on the sale of your other property. There's all kinds of conditions that you can add. And what happens with those conditions is that the deal, even though you have a signed deal, the deal isn't firmed up until you say that those conditions are okay. So generally the way that it works is you put in a condition. Let's say you put in a condition on financing, and then your lender takes a look at it, the appraiser comes in and they say, no, you're not going to get the financing from this. Then you can walk away from the deal because you have this condition in there. When you make an offer that's not conditional, that means that even if that happens, that becomes your problem, not the seller's. So that's why sellers want the cleanest offer possible. So I'm not recommending you get rid of all conditions, but what I am saying is you have to understand that in a multiple offer situation, that a seller is going to look for an offer that has 0 or very few conditions normally. So conditions is something to think about. So the next thing is your deposit. Typically in Toronto, a deposit is about 5% of the purchase price. And the way that it normally works is that, if it's a multiple offer situation, you will submit the deposit once your offer is accepted, and you get 24 hours to submit that offer. Now, there are situations where the seller will ask for a deposit, a certified deposit with the offer. So when I say certified, it's like a certified check or a bank draft with the offer. Now, if that isn't required and you're just expected to do it if your offer is accepted, it is always good practice to submit a certified check or bank draft with your offer to make it stronger. And the reason why is, let's say in a normal situation they don't require it and your offer gets accepted. Well, the deal isn't actually firmed up until you actually provide that deposit check. So if you're providing the deposit check with the offer and it gets accepted, then you're done and the deal is firmed up. But if you don't, then there's that 24-hour waiting period until you actually submit that deposit before the deal is done. So submitting a larger than 5% deposit and submitting it with the offer is always makes it stronger. Okay, and then the last strategy I'm going to talk about is getting personal. So what I mean by getting personal is that you can write a letter to the seller. Now, a lot of times people will say that this is not worth it, but I've seen it in Toronto, and sometimes you never know what can and cannot work. So a letter to the seller is just a letter to the seller explaining to them why you want to move into the house. And it might, it's all going to depend on the seller, and depending on your reason, it might have an effect. It might not. The seller might not be emotional at all and just wants the highest and best price. Or maybe the seller does want to move, sell to somebody that reminds them of them when they lived in the house, or whatever the case may be. Who knows? It's up to the seller. But if you make it personal and you write a letter, there's no harm in it. I will be honest, I haven't had anybody do it with me in a long time, but it's always a strategy. So those are some of my tips and tricks of winning the bidding war. Now listen, this is what I always tell my clients. When it comes to multiple offers and bidding wars, you just need to feel really comfortable with where you're at in the process. So you need to be comfortable with the financial part of it. You need to be comfortable with the decision-making part of it. And then you need to be comfortable with the outcome. So if you get the property, you need to be thrilled and not have any second thoughts about, whether or not you overpaid or gave too much or whatever. You just need to be thrilled that you got it. Or you need to be okay that you didn't get it, because it just meant that it wasn't the house for you because you couldn't get it within the conditions that you wanted. So if you can get to a mindset place there, then you're going to be in a good spot for multiple offers. So I'm going to finish off the video with 2 real life examples that I've experienced in the last couple of weeks. So the first one is the one that I already talked about, which is where we were supposed to go and see a property on Sunday because they were doing an offer on Monday. And then we got a call saying that there was an early offer and we had to go and see the property right away and make an offer right away if we wanted to compete. So we went and saw the property. My clients absolutely loved it. These are clients that have been looking for a long time, almost 7 months. And the type of property that they were looking for was very unique. So they absolutely loved it. And what was interesting about this property was that it was under the budget that they were looking at. So they went in with a really strong offer, no conditions, and the seller wanted a very quick closing date, so they gave the seller that as well. The client that's moving into the home could move quickly, so it all worked out. So when we submitted the offer, it was a very strong offer in all ways. And the other thing that happened in that whole process is that I constantly kept in touch with the listing agent, made sure that I fully understood what the seller wanted, made sure that all my paperwork was impeccable, and made sure that we had everything right. So when we submitted the offer, it was very easy for the seller to accept it. And so we got it. There was 5 offers total, and we ended up getting it. And my clients are absolutely thrilled. And the one thing I will note is it's somewhat of an unusual property, and my clients weren't worried about the appraisal part of it. So they felt, because it was under their budget, that if for whatever reason the appraisal fell short, then because it was under their budget, they had the cash to make up for any shortfalls in the appraisal. So that's how they ended up winning it. So that's one that we won. And in the same couple of weeks, my other clients bid on a property that they have been looking in this area for quite a while. And they came up with a property that they loved. And it's a very unusual property again, and unique. But the interesting thing about that property is that, so again, my clients went in with a clean offer, a very solid offer. They worked really closely with their lender. They looked at market comps. This area has gone really high in the last year. So they got as much, they went to their max on their what their lender would give them, and there was 17 offers and they didn't get it. And the offer that was accepted was $30,000 more than theirs. But you know what? They were okay with it because they knew that they were at their max. Even if they could have gotten it for $30,000 more, they know that they shouldn't have gotten it because they couldn't afford it. First of all, and once you pay more, you're paying more in land transfer tax. There's other things that they would have had to consider, and they just weren't in a position for that. My clients also gave them quick closing because this person wanted quick closing. There was no conditions. So with 17 offers, it probably just came down to the price. And my clients were okay with not getting it because they went in with their highest and best, and it just didn't work. So sometimes, even when you do everything right, you don't get the house, which is okay. My philosophy is it just wasn't meant to be. So let's go and find you the house that was meant to be. And I know with these clients, we are going to find the right house for them. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, I would love to hear any comments. Whether they're good or bad, just give me a comment and let me know. And also, if there's other videos that you would actually like to see, then please let us know, because again, this is all about educating you and answering any questions that you have about buying real estate in Toronto. Our goal is to make you as informed as possible so that when you are ready to buy or sell in Toronto, you feel confident. My name is Connie Sarvananthan, and feel free to reach out, call, text, email, or WhatsApp, and we'll be sure to help you out.